Derek Chauvin's murder trial continued with more testimony from some of his fellow officers. During the 7th day of proceedings, jurors heard from a sergeant and lieutenant who both train officers within the Minneapolis Police Department on crisis intervention and use of force. Another expert witness, meantime, testified he believes excessive force was used against George Floyd during his May 2020 arrest. CBS News correspondent Jamie Yuccas reports.
More police officers coming forward and testifying against one of their own in the Derek Chauvin trial.
Sir, is this an MPD trained neck restraint?
No, sir.
Has it ever been?
Not to my neck restraint? No, sir.
Lieutenant Johnny Mercel is a use of force instructor with the Minneapolis Police Department. Chauvin attended his training class in 2018.
But we don't train leg neck restraints with the officers in service. And as far as my knowledge, we never have.
Under cross-examination, Mercel testified that officers are trained to use their knee across a person's back or shoulder.
Yes. However, we've cautioned officers that be mindful of the neck area and to look for the shoulder.
And the jury heard from use of force expert Sergeant Jody Steiger.
My opinion was that the force was excessive.
Steiger is with the Los Angeles Police Department and has worked in some of LA's toughest neighborhoods.
Once he was placed in the prone position on the ground, they should have slowed down or stopped their force as well.
Meanwhile, a key witness and Floyd's friend, Maurice Hall, made an appearance in court today via Zoom. He was sitting in the SUV with Floyd when officers approached their vehicle last May. Hall's lawyer says her client is refusing to testify about whether he provided drugs to Floyd, fearing self-incrimination.
Give this family strength.
Today, George Floyd's family and supporters held a prayer service outside the courthouse.
But one thing I can tell you, after we get the verdict and we get this conviction, we'll be able to breathe.
The prosecution is expected to start calling investigators of the murder case to the stand. We plan to hear testimony about Floyd's drug use as a way to deflate the defense's argument that an overdose and underlying health condition caused Floyd's death. Elaine?
Jamie Yuccas, thank you. Vinoo Varghese is a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor. He joins me now for more. Vinoo, welcome. We've heard from quite a few police officials within the Minneapolis Police Department. What is the prosecution's strategy?
The strategy is simple. Isolate Chauvin. Make him the pariah, the bad cop, the bad apple, the person that is so bad that you have all these cops come and testify against him. They've cracked the blue wall of silence in this case, and that's what they're trying to do. But what they've done, in a way, is overkill. And today they were hurt by the testimony of multiple police witnesses. The defense was able to get some good evidence in through one of the witnesses, one of whom was Nicole McKenzie, the medical trainer for the Minneapolis Police Department. She gave basically the defense's argument, and it came out through the prosecution, which was that with everything going on, Chauvin and others may have missed signs that they would have normally been able to ascertain because of the large crowds. And their expert, the one that was featured in the presentation right before I went on, he gave some conflicting testimony. This expert, which they paid $12,000 to come in from LA, wasn't so strong for them, because he basically said that they were actually using reasonable force. And the first time it came out through him that George Floyd was resisting arrest.
Well, Minneapolis Police Sergeant Kerr Yang testified that Chauvin had taken a 40-hour course back in 2016 on crisis intervention training. Is that information in any way damaging to the defense's case, and why?
Well, it is. I mean, what the prosecution is arguing with it, and it's good. It's good move on the prosecution's part, which is to show that Chauvin knew better and he should have done better. That's the argument that they will be making in closing statements, that this was a trained officer, somebody with 19 years on the force. Again, though, this evidence or his training was contradicted by their medical trainer, Nicole McKenzie, today, who said with everything going on, and sometimes crowds attack EMTs, and she used to be an EMT, that you may miss things that you ordinarily would miss. And in trying to control the situation, which these officers were, that you may miss some critical things. It got so interesting today that they will be calling, the defense is now going to be calling Officer McKenzie to testify for them on the defense case.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, why is that behavior? I mean, I think you answered this next question, but why is that behavior of bystanders on the day of George Floyd's death an argument that we keep seeing the defense bringing up?
Well, because it's critical for the defense, right? So when the prosecution puts forth these arguments saying that he had all this training, that this was improper, this was excessive force, they're going to counter the defenses by saying this is legal. This is a legal maneuver. This was not illegal. This is something that was sanctioned by the Minneapolis Police Department. That combined with the chaotic situation of George Floyd resisting arrest, which came out through a prosecution witness today, that combined with that and the fact that he was yelling, "I can't breathe," when he was in the car before he was restrained, all of this is part of the reasonable doubt argument. Something else was going on here. When the medical evidence comes in and when you learn about George Floyd's underlying health conditions, that he had COVID, that he was high on meth and fentanyl, or he had used meth and he was high on fentanyl, all of this are arguments the defense will make to say that, hey, George Floyd didn't die because of Derek Chauvin. George Floyd died because he was unhealthy and he was high.
Well, Judge Peter Cahill has delayed a ruling on whether the defense can ask limited questions to Floyd's friend, Maurice Hall. He was in the car with Floyd the day he died. What are some reasons his testimony is crucial to the defense's case?
Well, he can lay the groundwork for the probable cause of the arrest. This was a lawful arrest. There was a witness who had called from the store saying that Floyd had tried to pass a counterfeit bill. So if the arrest was legal, not that it was a proper arrest, and then you combine that with the legal maneuver used by Chauvin, these are all things that could play to the doubt. That also with the medical testimony that's going to come forward. But they would like him to testify to basically bolster their case, and they may get out through this witness that George Floyd, what he knew about George Floyd's past. George Floyd is a convicted felon, was a convicted felon. He had committed a home invasion robbery of a pregnant woman. So these are the things that they hope to get out through multiple witnesses.
All right, Vinoo Varghese. Vinoo, thank you.